Most beginners fail at trading not because it's difficult, but because they haven't built a system. In this video, I'm going to break down 6 key concepts that trading and sports share in order to build that system from day one and not having to start back over. Hi, my name is Gustavo. You could call me Goose, and I've been trading for about 6 years now and currently helping over 500 traders. Trading is so easy to just get started that in the beginning, you might get lucky and start winning. But eventually, you're going to hit a bump in the road that's going to make you start back over from scratch. So I want to go ahead and break down these concepts so you guys can build this system and know how to approach the markets when you're trading from day one so you can really make a success out of this career. So because I play it and I love watching it, I'm going to relate this to football, aka soccer if you're in the States. Now, here's 6 key concepts that I'm going to break down a little further, but before we jump in, this is what they are: involvement, training, game plan, game time, managing, and performance, and then post analysis. And essentially, this is going to be our core concepts of the system we're going to apply from football over to trading. So let's go ahead and dive in a little bit more. For involvement, I know comparing a professional team, there is a bigger operation where there's multiple positions, but mainly I just want you guys to focus on the manager slash coaching staff and the player. So the reason why I'm just mentioning to focus on those is because as a trader, you are just an individual and it is a very lonely career. And this is what I would recommend is trying to join a community so you can have some sort of guidance, bounce off of other ideas, learn from other people. Essentially, because you are the only person doing this career, you have to be the jack of all trades. You have to be the manager. You have to be able to analyze. You have to be able to perform. And this is where I want you guys to kind of understand before jumping into the rest of the system, because you have to make sure that you can tackle all these problems and solutions so you can make sure that this is a successful trading career for you. Now that you understand as a trader, you're going to have to fill multiple roles. Let's move on to training. Now, in this section, this is probably where you're going to be spending the most time before you move on to trading with cash. I always recommend new traders to take their time here because you don't want to rush the process. That's like expecting to put on a pair of boots, go onto the pitch, kick the ball a couple of times, and then expect to be able to play at a professional level. I want you guys to treat trading the exact same way here. So let's go ahead and break down these key points here and how they relate as far as a roadmap on what you're going to want to follow here. I know at a professional level, they're not really working on the basics. They're working on drills and stuff, whether you're a very new trader or not. Essentially, you want to make sure you understand the basics of trading and the rules, okay? Then you're going to want to open up a broker platform. This is kind of like joining a team. There's different teams. Essentially, they're all going to be on the same pitch, playing on the same field. So don't get too hung up on the plethora of platforms out there. What I always recommend people to use is TradingView. This allows you to open up a paper trading account, which takes out that sting of putting on real money. The only thing you'll have to get is market data, and that's going to give you real-time data, or else it's going to be delayed by 10 minutes. Learning a position is kind of you trying out where you're going to be really good at versus where your weakness is at. And that's going to be kind of some time where you'll have to explore and find out what works for you. And again, this is where you're paper trading and trying to find that out before you put on real money, because then that's where the emotions kick in. A lot of people hesitate. They're trying to juggle too many things, trying to learn the markets, trying to learn trading, a strategy, trying to figure out how to use a platform, and it's just a recipe for disaster. So take your time with each step, and eventually it'll just come in naturally, and it's going to be second nature. Learning a strategy is basically finding a formation, a tactic, playing style from the manager, okay? You want to stick to a game plan here. And once you learn that strategy, you want to make sure you are waiting for those setups, okay? That's basically how you're going to score, is essentially waiting for those plays, those setups you're looking for, and that's where you're taking a shot to see if you can score and get a win. Now, when you're practicing, there are options for you to backtest, and in TradingView, you are allowed to use their market replay, meaning you can go back in time, press play, and it'll play out like if it's in real time. So that way you can kind of see how the markets move if you try to apply any strategy from that point. Once you've nailed down a strategy, make sure you stick with it for 1 to 2 years because you need to learn the different seasons of the markets and see how it applies. You don't want to fall into the trap of bouncing around, learning different strategies, because essentially you're going to be starting back at square one. This is like if a team loses a couple games, all of a sudden you want to sack the manager or get new players because the system doesn't work. Understand that you need to make small adjustments according to your game plan and learn from that, because if not, again, you're going to be starting at square one and you're going to fall into this trap of learning different strategies and you're never going to stick with it. So just make sure that you guys give yourself time to understand the strategy in different market conditions. Once you're ready to jump into the live markets, I still recommend traders to stick with paper trading. This is going to take out that emotion of having money on the table again. Think of this as your friendly match, your preseason. You're trying to understand if you need to make any adjustments, learning from mistakes, and then trying to improve there before you actually go into the start of the season where you're putting in real money. And before I forget and move on to the next slide, I do want to mention that if you guys are wondering where you can find a place to find all these resources and not have to go around all over YouTube, I will stick a link in the description. We have a ton of courses to get you from A to Z, and there's even live sessions that I teach in to give guidance during the live session. So if you guys are interested in that, go ahead and check out the link below. So let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. Let's say that you are finally ready to jump into the live markets. Something I always do is set a game plan. Obviously, for professional teams, they're able to kind of watch their opponent's footage from previous games and kind of study what their strengths and weaknesses are. And that's kind of their game plan to get ready for that next game. Okay. Now, for trading, you want to kind of step back on the larger point of view ahead of the week to analyze where the markets are at. Something else I like to look at is the economic calendar. Think of this as your weather forecast. Bloomberg calendar, economic calendar, Forex Factory are all great resources to kind of see what the market is anticipating for. I always filter to just level 3 news, and this is because it's going to have the highest impact on the markets. Now, I don't necessarily trade the news. It's because I am a technical trader, and a lot of the times when there's level 3 news, this can shake up the markets and it can disrespect the levels you are looking for. So just make sure you guys understand to avoid those times and kind of come back and let things settle. Under formations, tactics, this is your strategy. You're waiting for price to develop in order to find that setup and try to execute. So another thing I want you guys to do is limit yourself to a trading window. This is basically the exact same thing that professional athletes are limited to. In a football match, you have 90 minutes to perform, and I would treat trading the exact same way. You can't really expect a professional athlete to play another full game and to perform at the highest level that they're expected to. So, trading is exactly the same way. Again, this is kind of why I mentioned find a market, find a session that you are looking to trade, and limit yourself to a small window and try to perform there. This will bring me to the next slide. It's game time. And again, I want you guys to find a window and limit yourself and not trade outside of that. This is where you're breaking rules. Not all the time will a player be able to play the full 90 minutes. Sometimes they might not be able to perform. This is kind of where you have to learn to be the manager and the player. So if you are not reading the markets and your plan isn't working, you might need to take a step back, sub yourself out for the day. Because if you overtrade, this is where a lot of people start to lose a lot more. Or if they get greedy because they want to take some extra trades later in the day outside of their trading window, this is where they start to take small losses. And think of that 2-0 scenario on a football match. That is the worst lead in football because as soon as the other team scores one goal,
the whole game shifts. The other team goes on tilt, the leading team ends up losing the game. So that's kind of exactly what happens with trading. And this is where I want you guys to create that discipline of sticking to that window, sticking to that strategy, and being able to be that manager and the player. Post analysis, the last concept here. After the game is over, it is a great thing to just go back, review your trades, whether it's a win or loss. And this is kind of why I used football as an analogy here, is because you can win, draw, and lose. So, a good thing to do when you're reviewing your trades is learning what you did well, learning what you did wrong. Did you follow your plan? How much money did you make? How much money did you lose? Or did you get out break even, meaning a draw? And these are all things that are going to help you understand who you are as a trader. And essentially, after that, you are repeating the system. The next day is going to be a completely different day. And the following day, it doesn't mean that you are going to see the exact same thing. That's like playing one team who is at the bottom of the league. You beat them the first game. Second time comes around, all of a sudden they win. That's what happens with trading. You're going to win, you're going to lose. If you can play defense really well, if you can follow your game plan and become disciplined, you are going to be successful in trading. And that is a wrap with this video. Make sure you guys like and subscribe this video. I will be posting more videos in the future to bring you guys even more value.